Meanwhile, folks, the markets have been trading higher, in part to stimulus hopes, but also beginning to handicap where investors want to be, where you want to be positioned on November 4th. The results right now look like three investment themes are really building up. Retail and retailers, hence the Stimulus Act, industrials with bailouts, particularly the airlines, and materials in case we get an infrastructure long promised. Now, beyond Washington, there are also other factors for today's trading, including IBM. Their very late epiphany on cloud computing. There's big Wall Street banks trying to sort of recapture that fading glory. A big deal out of Morgan Stanley. A lot to discuss. I want to bring in our market pros, UBS, Northeast Private Wealth Management's Julie Fox, Nicholas Wealth Management President David Nicholas, and Walzer Wealth Management President Rebecca Walzer. Rebecca, let me start with you from an economic and markets perspective. What stands out from you from these first two debates?
You know, Charles, the first one was really chaotic, and it was hard to get economic topics out of it. But, we did, I think Trump did an effective job of tying some of Biden's policies and the law and order, the lack of law and order, which we now have estimates is going to cost us $3 billion with the riots that we've had. Last night, I thought we had more points that came out. Obviously, it was a lot more easy to follow. And I was disappointed with the level of expectation that they are putting on this administration. Kamala Harris basically said that we have lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs, whereas we know under Trump's first 3 years, 500,000 manufacturing jobs were created. So what they're holding him to is a standard of the economy under a coronavirus, a 100-year event that no president would have been able to sustain. And I think that Vice President Pence did a great job of pointing out that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everything that when the history books are written, they'll have to add an asterisk to it. But I guess if you're the opposing party, that's not your job. David, you actually tweeted VP Pence was an absolute boss. So what does that mean for investors if we get a President Biden?
Yeah, well, Charles, Vice President was a boss last night because he put on a clinic, an absolute masterclass in how to defeat your opponent in a debate. I thought he was strong. I thought he was respectful, but he also brought substance that the American people want to hear. We know what we're going to get with a President Biden and a Kamala ticket. We're going to get more regulation. We're going to get taxes raised on the American people, both personal and corporate. If you just look at technology, the amazing run that technology's had this year, if you look at their capital gains proposals, 40% capital gains tax for the highest earners. If you have to give up 40% of what you made in your technology stocks this year, you're going to rush to sell those stocks by the end of the year, so that doesn't carry forward to next year. So does raising taxes in a weak economy work for stocks? It doesn't. So we know it works. Let's stick to that.
Hey, Julia, I know that you talked this summer and also in the fall about anticipating volatility perhaps throughout the rest of the year. But we always know whenever there's volatility, it masks opportunities as well. Where do you think investors should be looking for outsized gains as we go into 2021?
Yeah, well, Charles, I think anytime we see a pullback, we think that that's an opportunity for longer-term investors to take advantage of that and to be able to add more risk or reposition their portfolios. And so one of the things that a lot of our clients are talking to us now about is tech. And it may surprise you, but we don't think it's time to sell tech. We don't think it's the next bubble. And if you look at the valuations, they're well below where they were in the 1990s. I think it's important that you diversify. And so the areas that we like within tech are in things around 5G. That includes gaming, that includes e-commerce. And when you look at the run that tech has had, it's really been concentrated in the 5 to 6 mega names. And right now, we think it's really time to look beyond that.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot there. By the way, much has been made about the need for stimulus. We began the show with it. By the same token, though, there's a lot of pockets, money in the pockets of consumers. I mean, we learned yesterday that consumer credit, that the debt had fallen. In fact, it's in free fall, and it's at its lowest point since 2017. Julie, let me go back to you real quick. This is dry powder. We take all of that money, over a 14% savings rate, add $1,200 into it. I'm thinking retailers is a place you got to be long.
Yeah, I mean, retail has been on the rise over the last month. And I think one of the things that we don't hear a lot about is the savings rate. But if you look at it over the last 6 months, it's been on the rise during the time that people have been really stay at home. And just talk to people. People aren't going out and traveling, and they're not driving. If you're working from home, you're not spending money on lunch every day. And so I think you're going to start to see that pent up demand that when people do go back out and have been going back out, they're starting to spend that in the economy. And we've seen the benefit of that. Right. And then you also add in the fiscal stimulus. We've had some, but you know, the market's really looking for more.
Yeah, absolutely. The market's greedy. Plus, $2 trillion is a lot of money. If I don't know we'll get that much. In the meantime, the other big news story from the market that really IBM finally focusing on cloud, right? They're going to spin off the business. Investors cheering the move. I think it's good for IBM, but more importantly, it underscores the role of cloud in our world for a long time to go. David, you know, you talked earlier about tech. Just how much exposure should investors have to cloud and these other nuances in the digital economy?
Yeah, you know, I think it was a great move by IBM. I've been saying for a while that cloud is the future, but it really is. Look, cloud companies have the ability to grow earnings, keep costs under control, even while the economy is struggling. So I think for investors, we got to look at cloud. Now, evaluations are frothy, but remember, we're paying for future earnings for these companies many years out. So that's why I say taxes are important. But as investors, I want to own cloud today for earnings that we're going to see 3 to 5 years down the road. So for me, it's a buy. I like Adobe, and I like a company like DocuSign as well.
DocuSign and Adobe, I like those too. Rebecca, I'll give you the last word. We got less than a minute to go. A lot of moving parts to this market. What's the one thing that's standing out most to you?
I need some airline stimulus. I mean, let's get some actual stimulus without the pork, you know, and let's get it done, because how long do they expect to withhold? How long can Americans just say, okay, we'll wait, Nancy Pelosi, for you to get this worked out? We've got to get this airline stimulus done. It's really making me nervous for the airline industry. I don't like it at all, Charles.
2 airlines alone warning that they'll lay off or furlough, which is a fancy word for delay layoff, 30,000 employees. Congress, do we have your attention? Julie, David, Rebecca, you have ours. Fantastic. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again real soon.